Okay, so let's get to topic 3, where the focus is on information in the left column in table 2 above, and a short video I created specifically for this topic. When I say a short video I created specifically for this topic, it turns out that it's this very video that we are talking about. So, as you can see, we have a table here. You already did that table, and so you can see that I say the information in that table. So now we know what we're supposed to be doing here. If you're using the topic stems or prompts or topic subheadings, I guess you could say, as a way to formulate an introductory sentence for the A-level response, know that that's not going to quite work with this because this doesn't tell us much. It says information in the left column. So you'd have to replace information in the left column of table 2 with a summary or the gist of what kind of information is in here. So you could use the headings and the headings of the columns and the basic categories of information. So you could talk about, so what does this table consist of? Scores and the professor's feedback on what? Argument for clarification, as well as what? Scores for what? That, as well as what? Your responses. And of course, by your responses for the task wrappers, as I said, we mean what you responded in terms of your answers to task wrappers. So we have my feedback here, and then we have your discussion of whatever the task wrappers were about. And of course, each task wrapper here corresponds with what's over here. All right, so again, if you're going to do an introductory sentence, you want to change it a little bit, and you want to, you could use this part right here, right, as your first sentence, but then you'd have to have another introductory sentence that tells me what is in table 2. That would kind of be like a segue. So like for each paragraph, kind of imagine almost like you haven't written anything else before it if you're doing an introductory sentence. So this is just going above and beyond for the A-level answer. If you don't want to do that, then just go straight to answering the questions. Okay, so look at the feedback provided by the professor on your attempts to clarify your own arguments. What, if any, mistakes did she note with respect to your first attempt? So look at the feedback provided by the professor on your attempts to clarify your own arguments. So here are the argument tasks that you're looking at, and you should already have copied and pasted the professor feedback. Now, in an earlier video, I wasn't able to show you something. I'm going to show it to you real quick right now. So I modified my student preview mode. This is for the ethics class, by the way. So the task numbers might be different. So don't pay attention to the task number information. It's just that I set up my gradebook in a way to demonstrate something I wanted to demonstrate earlier. So with whatever section you're in, so some of you are in my intro class, some of you are in my ethics class, some of you are in a 16-week class, some of you are in an 8-week class. Let's say you're going to focus first on, for your topic or topic number, you're going to focus first on the response that I gave you for your first argument markup and reformatting. And again, depending on which section, which course you're in, this will be different. But, of course, you've got your score here in the table, and what I was talking about in terms of feedback was to click on any little button or little, comment icon that you might see to get the feedback. And let's see. And so when I click on the comment button, so make sure you scroll all the way up and down because you should have for that table 2 copied and pasted everything that's in there. So you would just copy like this, right, and then paste it. Another way to get to the feedback, what I recommend you do, because it might help you write a better paragraph for your respective topic, whatever section you're in, is you could click on the assignment title. And then what's really cool, of course, and a lot of you know this, is that you see your response and then you see my comments right next to it. So you can go from here to make sense of, what I said, or just to get the bigger picture. So I wanted to show you that in a previous video, and now I have. Okay. And likewise, when you're when you are doing this table and you're getting your score for that wrapper, there's something you can do to get your original response as well, and I did show you how to do that. That wasn't an issue. Okay, so going back to topic 3, so you're looking at the feedback, and I just clarified how you get the feedback. So you should have the feedback right here. You should have all of it. Make sure you pay attention to formatting. So, when you're in here and you're adding the formatting, it might look all weird. I recommend that you do this. Again, this might be the template for another class, but the gist is the same, or another section, but the gist is the same. So like you could put a space. Maybe I told you that to space it out. But also, sometimes I give you the feedback like in a list-like format. just make sure it looks nice, enter, make sure things look good as much as you can. All right, so going back over here. What, if any, mistakes did she note with respect to your first attempt? Okay, so then what you're going to do is you can't just copy and paste what's in here. We already have the feedback copied and pasted over here. What you're doing is you're creating sentences in your own words about mistake that you made. Now, of course, you're going to use phrases and words from the feedback. I just don't want you to copy and paste it. So, you can say, well, the professor noted, you can say general things at first. So for each item that I gave you feedback, you can say, well, the professor said she noticed that I did pay attention to the lessons and that I showed some abilities. And of course, you can't use what I'm saying right now. You have to put it in your own words. And then you can say, I made, when I look at her feedback, I can see I made, X number of mistakes. Two mistakes that I made that stick out to me are blank. And then you could even elaborate on, why do those mistakes stick out to you? Did you think that you got them right and you were surprised that you got something wrong? Or were you not surprised, or, whatnot? So let's see, hold on. Oh, actually, no, I wouldn't elaborate or comment on that. So here you're just kind of making sense, kind of like summarizing and kind of looking at things here. So what, if any, mistakes did she note with respect to your first attempt? So yeah, you're just presenting the mistakes in sentence format in your own words, but you're also kind of maybe summarizing or showing observations. Don't talk about whether you're surprised or not surprised by anything, because that's what you're going to do down here. So let me give you an example. Let me continue to give you an example with, this question right here. And that is, you can say, well, when I look at, the first argument, she gave me, a lot of feedback. I had 10 mistakes. So that would be a good idea. Count up the number of mistakes. How many mistakes did you have? As you know, I tend to go like A, B, C, D, or I number the comments that I have. How many mistakes did I tell you? So just go A, B, C, D. That's 4 mistakes. You can even tell me how many mistakes did you have with respect to formatting, uniform language. How many? So you can give me summaries like that. So when it came, I had this kind of mistakes. So you can talk about the kinds of mistakes. You don't have to tell me specifics like, I took premise 1, which stated blah, 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 and said it was a conclusion, which stated, just kind of like summarize, like how many mistakes did you have? Were they formatting? How many of them were formatting mistakes? How many of them were labeling mistakes? How many of them were issues with eliminating? Did you have a lot of mistakes with not correcting things that were sentence fragments? Did you create things that were sentence fragments? So you're just kind of reporting like that. And just like how I had the questions, you can just turn those into answers. If you don't have mistakes, then you can also still think about the kind of mistakes you could have had that you didn't have by looking at my feedback. So, when it comes to your argument feedback, I tend to, again, give you categories. So I always have the category of markup, reformat, and uniform language. So even if you don't have any mistakes or very few, you can say, well, when I look at my feedback, all she said was that I did a good job with the markup, and she noted 1 mistake with my reformat. The only mistake I made with is, or you could say, when it comes to the formatting and markup in my argument, she said that she didn't note any mistakes. In fact, she said just good job. Another thing that you can do, so we're not looking at just, you can also talk about bonus points. So how much of your score for that first item was bumped up by bonus points? Maybe you had really an 85 or 90, but then you got 10 bonus points. So you could add information about that as well. So you can say, well, I made a lot of mistakes with this argument, and I had a 60, I was able to get my grade to a 70 because I did the bonus points. So that helped out a lot, and she gave me credit. You can also talk about mistakes that I made with extra credit. So let's say you didn't make any mistakes when it came to markup and reformatting, but I made a comment about, your pattern or your diagram. If you did that, you can say, well, I didn't make any mistakes, with the markup and reformatting. She did note that, when it came to she did note blah, blah, blah about my attempt to do a diagram or a pattern for extra credit. So now you've got a sense of the kinds of things you can say about my feedback with respect to each argument. As you can see, I'm not just regurgitating the specifics, what I've said. You're kind of giving an overview of, how many mistakes, what kind of mistakes, how did those mistakes affect your grade? Like what was the total deduction for? You could even talk about, like you lost this many points for reformat, you lost that many points for this, but you did get, you did get some good points. And so you can think of like when I give you full or all, the credit for bonus points, you can say, well, she didn't give me any feedback for my markup or pattern, but she obviously thought it was good and that I did correct because she gave me full credit. So that's kind of like an implicit feedback, I guess, in the score. How do the mistakes noted by the professor in your second attempt compare with the mistakes she noted in the first attempt? Okay, so feedback here, then you're looking at the feedback here. So then you can say, well, compared to my first argument, compared to my first attempt, the professor noted less mistakes or more mistakes. Well, how many mistakes did you make in here versus here? Did you make more mistakes with formatting when it came to this argument and less with this argument? Did you get less bonus points than you did with this one? Did you get more bonus points? Did you not have any issues with sentence fragments here, creating them in your markup, but you did here? So you don't have to, so when you're talking about this one, you're talking about, again, general categories, what kind of mistakes, how many mistakes, but then you're talking about them in reference to this one, okay? So compared to and contrasting to, so you're both comparing and contrasting the kinds and numbers of mistakes, but also you can know if you got bonus points. That's kind of actually very insightful, and that would get you that A-level response to include comments about any bonus points. Of course, if you didn't do any, then you don't even need to mention that. If you don't want to, maybe you could mention that down here if you want to. Okay, so how do any mistakes in your third attempt compare with your first and second attempts? So then here, I might not have given you feedback here because maybe I didn't have time to get to this toward the end of the semester, or I just had to stop giving you feedback because we were at the point of the semester where we just graded. So what you can do is just whatever comment I have here, put that comment and then tell me why you can't answer the third question. If you're going for that A-level answer, what you could do is to look at the score that you got there. You can say, well, she didn't give me personalized feedback on the last argument attempt that I had with respect to clarification, but I think I do see that she has taken off some points for formatting. So I did still tell you how many points you lost. For most of you, I still told you for this one, even if I didn't give you personalized, detailed feedback specific to your content, I still told you how many points you got for bonus. I still told you how many points you got for markup, reformat, and uniform language. If nothing else, you should be able to see how many points you lost for each of those categories and how many times. So let's say for reformat and uniform language, you see -1, -1, -1. Well, that's probably, that you made 3 mistakes because you see 3 -1s. And you can say, I'm not sure what the mistakes were. I know it had to do with reformatting, and I did it 3 times. Most of the time, if you see a -1 for reformatting, it's going to be because you didn't employ uniform language. Most of you, that was the case with respect to coronavirus. You would say it or virus, COVID-19, coronavirus, and you didn't use the same version of the word throughout. And then, of course, you needed to either say COVID-19 or coronavirus and choose one of those. Virus is too general, so you needed to make it more exact. So you can definitely still look at what I say here. You can still copy my general comment if I said I don't have time for detailed feedback, but you can still get some information. Even if I don't have a lot of comments, you still have some information in terms of how many points you lost for stuff. So you can still do overall general comparisons. Like, here you can say, well, I don't have a lot of personalized detailed feedback, but I see that, compared to my first 2 attempts, she took off a lot less points for markup. I did way better in this last argument. Or you could say something like, well, compared to my first 2 arguments, I can see that, I did way worse on uniform language than I did on the first 2 attempts. So stuff like that. That gives you a sense. So now we've got, if you did not get any feedback for something, so I just talked about this one right here. Everybody should have some kind of feedback. Now, there might be a few of you that got 110 points or over 100 points. See if there's anything at all. Did I say perfect? Did I say nice? Did I say good job? If not, then just whatever I have, for those of you who have perfect points, and just make that comment. Say, well, I got over 100 or I got 110. So, obviously I did really good. And so she didn't even have to note that I had any deductions. But then you can still compare. Even if you have no deductions or you've got over 100, so you have very few, you can say, wow, Well, compared to, let's say it's this one right here. You can say, wow, I got a perfect score on the second argument attempt. I got 110 points. This is way better than my first attempt because I really didn't take it seriously, and so I got a 60. And then I got a much lower grade, on my third one. And the reason is because this time I made sure that I bracketed and numbered all the statements. In my first attempt, I didn't do that. And in my second attempt, I did do that. And so even though she didn't leave me any personalized comments, it's obvious that since she didn't take off for any points in the markup, that change that I made, that I bracketed and numbered all the statements, that must have made a difference. So you can say something like that if you need to add something, or just keep it general. You can say, let's go back to this as an example. Well, I got 110 on this, and she said perfect. She didn't take off any points for anything. She gave me all the bonus points. And one thing that I can say is that in my perfect answer is that you don't see me making mistakes with bracketing as I did in the second attempt, and you don't see me make the first and second attempt. And also in my third response, while she didn't speak specifically to this, since I got 100 or 110 or 105, I probably did way better with employing uniform language because I lost some points in the first two attempts for uniform language, but in the third one I didn't lose any points. So you can still, if you have a perfect score for this one with very little to no feedback, the fact that you've got a perfect score allows you to say, wow, well, here are the kinds of mistakes I made, so I guess I didn't make these kinds of mistakes in here. And so you can just say that here. Okay, now we're getting towards the end of this. What did the professor say in the video that goes with this document about the feedback provided? So here's your mini lecture, take points. You can have one or two lines quoted from me, but if you do quote from me, make sure you explain. You can also paraphrase, and you can also, but you should not plagiarize in any way. Okay, it's always better to use quotation marks to be better safe than sorry. You'd rather lose points for accuracy. If I say I didn't say it like that verbatim, or I didn't say that, then get a 0 for this assignment because you plagiarized because you didn't use quotation marks or you didn't properly cite. Okay, so the purpose of the feedback, and a lot of you used it this way, was to coach you. Remember earlier in the semester I said I want to coach you through the course. I want you to think of me as more of a coach than a professor. And so the feedback was exactly what I said at the beginning of the semester. I see myself more so or at least often as more of a coach than a professor. You guys are my players. You guys have goals. It's like, maybe the better analogy is like golf. Okay, so let's say you're each golf players and I'm the coach. And I have to give you feedback on what I observe you doing. So if you're a golf player, you've got I guess they're called golf clubs. I need to look at every single thing you're doing with your mechanics, your body mechanics. How, your stand, the weight on your feet, your arms, the angles, how far back you go, the force of your swing. I don't play golf. I'm just imagining that these are things that they talk about. And so then as your coach, if I was right there with you, I would be giving you feedback, corrections, observing. But what's the point of feedback? It's so that you can improve, be mindful, maybe become aware of things that you didn't know. It's so that you could learn from your mistakes, right? And so I wanted you to see what your mistakes were so that you could grow from them. As Michael Jordan says, I succeed because I've failed. As the Khan Academy says, failure is just another word for learning if you have the right mindset. So while it might have seemed really harsh when I gave you feedback, it's just me being an intense coach with very little time trying to get you on track and to get you to your best performance. Okay, so that said, that's the end of this video.